Hello, boys and girls. This is Guildmaster Kenyatta Long, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about psychic vampires. Ooh. So, for the purposes of this little talk, I'm going to assume that most people listening here are aware of what psychic vampires are. But if you happen to not know what a psychic vampire is, then I'll give the occult science definition of that phenomenon. So, a psychic vampire is essentially a person that consciously or unconsciously draws life energies from another person or living thing. And it's very important that I make the distinction that that term cannot be properly used in terms of drawing energy from an environment. So, for example, a like a museum or something like that. So that term can't be used in that context because the word vampire, when you use that word, it implies that the person doing the vampiring is draining something that has a finite amount of energy. So, in the context of a place being drained of energy, it's not possible. So, to use the term psychic vampire, it to describe the phenomenon in the context of draining energy from an environment is erroneous, and it leads to misunderstandings. So, as I say, psychic vampires are primarily they primarily consciously or unconsciously draw life energies from people or living things. So, just to get that out there and just give you some more information for you to chew on. Now, how psychic vampirism works is essentially there is a flow of energy, and again, this flow of energy is set up unconsciously or consciously, depending on the individual, the vampire in question. But essentially, human beings, we have chakras, and again, most of you listening to this, you are aware of the chakras, and you have different systems that you may be attuned with. But for the purposes of this talk here, I'll just talk about the 7 chakra systems. So we have chakras, and essentially these chakras bring in energy from the universe, and they convert those energies into usable formats for our physical body. So depending on the chakra, that determines what type of energy we draw in. So if you're talking about the root chakra, that draws in earth energies and sexual energies. If you're talking about the solar plexus chakras, that is related to personal power and ego. So it draws in those energies that are related to personal power and so on and so forth. So at any rate, once these energies hit the chakras, they are driven into the body and carried throughout the body via various energy channels. Some people call these meridians. Some people just call them energy channels. Again, it just depends on what energetic or bioenergetic disciplines you're familiar with. But the energy comes into the chakras, hits the channels, and then is fed to the different organs and muscles and tissues in the body there. So what happens with a psychic vampire is that for some reason or some number of reasons, this particular person or these persons, their bioenergetic anatomy is set up in such a way as to cause a deficit, which in turn causes them to have the need to absorb life force that's been already created, or energy that's already been taken in through the chakras and the meridians or energy channels and been processed and created into a usable form. So what a psychic vampire does is they're able to take that energy, that created form of life force, and use that to nourish their own biophysical and physical bodies. And one of the mechanisms by which this works is energy cords. So whenever we talk to a person, we touch a person, we look at a person, this could be just even looking at a picture of a person or having some sort of sample, if you're familiar with radionics terminology. But having a sample or connecting with a person in some way, this creates an energy cord, and through this energy cord, this allows the psychic vampire to connect with the individual, and at that point, they can draw life force from the person. Now, the thing about these energy cords is that they can stay. You can have energy cords connected to yourself and to other people for very long periods of time. I mean years, so decades even. And this principle of energy cords is at work with a bunch of other occult sciences, but again, we're just going to limit our talk to psychic vampires. But um, there's so many different, again, misconceptions about what a psychic vampire is, and in this talk, again, I'll do my best to sort of make some of those distinctions. But essentially, psychic vampires, they can have a tendency. So a psychic vampire can favor the drawing of emotional energies, or a psychic vampire can favor the drawing of physical energies. And it just depends on how that individual psychic vampire is set up, or bioenergetically. And there's even people that are, they have a mix, so they are more prone to draw both the physical and emotional energies. And in any case of psychic vampirism, there is some degree of both types of energy being drawn from a person in question, or persons in question. It just varies on the depends on the situation in question. But you know, psychic vampirism, it seems to be very popular nowadays, and it is a skill at the end of the day. At the end of the day, it is a skill, and it is something that an occult scientist can master and use strategically to enhance their magical the effects of their magical projections, and also just life in general. You know, being able to psychically draw energy, or I should say bioenergetically draw energy from a person, it has a lot of benefits when you use it properly. So for example, if you are in an influence situation and you want to gain compliance from a person, you can drain energy from the person to sort of weaken their resistance to any of your thoughts and ideas. So that way your thoughts and ideas can hit their energy field a little bit harder and have more effect. So that way you can more easily get or achieve what you're trying to achieve with their aid there. So that's one way in which you can use psychic vampirism consciously. So now regarding protection from psychic vampires, there's a bunch of ways you can protect yourself. And psychic vampires, for the most part, they don't choose this. Again, this is this can be a accident, if you will, of birth. So, but it still is nice to know how to protect yourself. And one way in which you can protect yourself from psychic vampires is to first identify those people in your life with whom you come into contact, and after you leave, you just feel totally drained, and you just feel tired, heavy. You just feel like you haven't slept for 24 hours. So identify those people, and once you're able to identify those people, you have some decisions to make. So you have to determine whether or not this person is someone that's worth keeping around in your life. Once you're able to determine either way if they have to go or if they're going to stay, then you can make some appropriate actions. But if you determine that they have to go, then it's best to perform a ritual in which you cut any energetic cords to them. But very important that once you cut the cords, that you decrease contact. So or you eliminate contact, I should say. So you want to completely eliminate contact. And this is a very simple reason, but it's a reason it's something that most people overlook, and this causes them a lot of problems. But when you re-establish contact with the person, so let's say, for example, you've cut off contact and you've cut the energy cords, and you still find this person trying to reach out to you to, for whatever reason. Really, when they're reaching out to you, it's just an excuse to reconnect so they can start draining your energy again. But if you reestablish the contact, then obviously the drain reestablishes as well. So limit contact or eliminate contact, cut the cords, eliminate contact with this person, and this should be enough to get the person away, or get the vampire in question, to keep them out of your life. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate, and if you're listening to this and you're a psychic vampire and you want to learn how to manage this state better, one thing you can do is, if you're a person that that you're a psychic vampire and you've consciously drawn energy from individuals, one thing that you can do to kind of ease the I don't want to say guilt, but ease any negative feelings towards that skill from yourself, you can choose places to go where there's a lot of people. And when you choose places like this, you're essentially choosing places that have a lot of ambient, I should say, cast off life force. And by doing this, you limit the amount of potential harm that you can cause by drawing energy from one person. And now you have that draw of energy, you have it spread out. So now you're actually taking in the, and I hate to use the word cast off, because, cast off seems, it has negative connotations with it, but I'll use it for the purposes of this talk here. But you want to find places where there's a lot of people and the energy of the atmosphere is high. So that way you can receive lots of energy, but now, you're not just taking energy from one person. Because whether you're engaging in psychic vampirism or psychoenergetic vampirism, consciously or unconsciously, there's always a chance that you can do real harm. This is a real thing, and if you're a psychic vampire, this. And if you're a person on the other side of the coin that has only read about psychic vampirism and is curious, you can cause a lot of harm with this if you're not careful. Mostly harm comes in the form of excessively draining one person, past the point where you're draining that person down to where they have to tap into their reserves. So, this is why draining from large areas where energy has been cast off, such as like a concert. So concerts are perfect places for you to practice this group draw, we'll say, for the purposes of this talk here. But yeah, if you spread out the drawing of energy, then you limit the risk of harming a person in the process. And again, psychic vampirism or psychoenergetic vampirism, it's not a good or a bad thing. It just is what it is. And if you're if you're a person that's on the side of if you're a psychoenergetic vampire, then I would recommend that you find someone experienced in biophysical energy repair, as far as being able to repair the different aspects of the biofield and the aura, and see what they can do to help you kind of fix those deficits in your bioenergetic makeup. And again, if you're a psychic vampire, this energy is real. So it's worth your time to do your research and find people that can help you with that. And the guild, we have experience in all areas of the especially dealing with biophysical energy. So we can help you get that fixed. So that's it for this talk here, guys. So just remember, as an occult scientist, we see things differently. So things aren't good and bad. It's just the way in which they're being used. So You know, a bomb can be good or bad depending on the context. I'm not saying, you know, you go out there and just make bombs and stuff, but, you know, bombs can be, or anything can be good or bad, but it just depends on the context in which you use it. So this is Guildmaster Kenyatta Long here. I'm signing off. So I wish you guys well, and stay tuned because we're going to have more talks and more videos on the occult sciences. So thank you so much for joining me, and you guys have a great day.